and welcome back to the 406-411 with Bethany and Michael. This is Bethany.
And I'm Michael.
And today we're going to be talking about the infamous and famous Thomas Meagher.
Yeah,
Is that
Thomas
how you say
Meagher. Fascinating figure.
Very fascinating.
Hopefully you all tuned in to our last episode with the indomitable spirit of Wendy Paulson.
Mm-hmm.
She was awesome. Hopefully you all go out to see A Christmas Story here in Conrad here this week and next week. So it's going to be busy happenings around town. But yes, we are going across the prairie over to Fort Benton and talking about Thomas Meagher today, a fascinating figure in American history and Irish history for that.
And Montana history
And
specifically.
Montana. So, yeah.
And Australian history.
Australian history. I don't remember that. Oh, Tasmania. Okay.
Yeah, Tasmania is part of Australia.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have we'll be talking a bit about him. So, do you know anything about him?
I know a little bit about him. I know that he is responsible for the modern Irish flag, the orange, white, and green.
He is. But yes, he is an interesting figure. He obviously was born, raised over in Ireland. I'm trying to remember exactly where. I want to say it was County Kildare, if I remember correctly. But he would grow up there. He would be renowned as an orator. He would be a skilled debater. But as we know, in the mid-19th century, who is running Ireland?
The English.
The British, that's right. Those crazy limeys with their tea and whatnot.
Hey, no slurs on our podcast.
Oh, yeah, we're family friendly.
We are.
Well, I'm also
I'm going to get you a beeper button.
Sweet. That's
So,
fantastic.
We apologize to all British people listening for Michael's rude behavior.
So what am I supposed to call them? Can I call them anything?
Yeah, you can call them British, English.
Because yes, Britain is running England, and they had been running Ireland rather, for the better part of up till that point in time. What, 600, 500 years, something like that. So there is a deep-seated hatred of the British by the Irish, and Thomas Francis Meagher actually is, he's kind of renowned in that Irish independence movement. He becomes this leading figure. Eventually, he would actually be arrested for anti-British behaviors.
The Young Irelanders.
Yes, the Young Irelanders.
Yes, that's the group that he was a leader of.
So yes, he would be arrested eventually. Eventually, he'd actually make his way to Montana, but not before.
He was arrested and sentenced to death.
Yes.
And then his death sentence was commuted to, I don't know, do they call it banishment?
Yeah, something like that.
Transportation.
Yes.
So he was commuted to transportation to Australia, to Tasmania specifically, if he promised not to try to escape.
Huh. So what does that say about his sense of honor, maybe? I don't know.
Well, he did write them a letter saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to escape. Before he escaped. Well, actually, it was during. He wrote a letter, and then he escaped that same day. So by the time they got the letter, because, snail mail was a real thing back then.
Well, I think that's got to be like a kind of like a British Isles kind of thing, because Winston Churchill did the same thing during the, the Second Boer War. He got sent to a POW camp, left a letter for his captors, basically saying how it was unfitting for him to be there anymore, and he left.
Huh.
So, yeah, there's a fun fact about Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yes, he'd go to Tasmania. Eventually, he would make his way over to the United States. So, yes, now, mind you, we are in the 1840s, 1850s, leading into the 1860s, and we are running up on one of those cataclysmic events in, well, frankly put, you can make the argument of U.S. history, the American Civil War. So, people on both sides of the Atlantic had a vested interest in the outcome of the Civil War, but being that Thomas Meagher was a proud Irishman, and he ends up coming all the way over and joining the Union Army. So he is fighting for the North because he was not a fan of the British, and the British were offering tacit support to the South.
Also, and I read this. This is interesting. In the beginning, he actually supported the Confederacy because he was very big on freedom for everyone, and he was kind of conflicted because of the states' rights argument and all of that. But he ended up supporting the Union and going to fight for the Union because he realized how important it was for the United States to be one country.
Yeah.
And that if we split into two countries, that we wouldn't be able to prosper.
But yes, so he would eventually join up, but I must apologize. I skipped over some stuff. He would actually travel to various parts of Central America. He'd owned a newspaper before the Civil War. All right, he had a radical pro-Irish independence newspaper called The Citizen. Gotta love these names that they had back then. Gotta love it.
I wonder if they're trademarked.
I don't know.
Or if I could start a paper called The Citizen.
I would think the trademark would expire by now. I mean,
You'd think so. Is there like a newspaper or a outlet in this day and age called The Citizen?
I don't know.
Okay.
So that I guess that's going to be a research project for you then. So
Or you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So yeah, he starts this newspaper. He's traveling around trying to figure out where Irish can go, where the Irish people can leave to. Because, I mean, we're talking in the 1850s. We are during the potato famines.
The potato famine.
Oh, yes, when a whole lot of Irish are leaving Ireland. So you look like you have something you want to say.
Yes. There's also the relationship over the years between the native people here and the Irish, because the native people were
The Cherokee.
the Cherokee knew very well what hunger and famine and destitution was like, and they sent money to the Irish.
Yeah,
Really?
that is true. During the
That is
potato
interesting.
famine, the Cherokee people who had just undergone, a decade or so earlier, the Trail of Tears, they send off a offering of money to the Irish peoples, and the Irish peoples have erected a big monument. I forget exactly where it's at.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, there's a very strong tie between the Irish and Native American tribes over here. So it's fascinating. It's just wonderful to see stories like this coming out.
Right.
So
Well, and that's, at that time in the mid 1800s, that was during part of the time where the Irish were very much looked down upon.
oh yeah, with
in the
the
United
Irish were
States.
second-class citizens at this point in time.
Yeah.
They were. There's many signs that I've seen where businesses would be advertising for employment, and you'd see up there, "No Irish need apply."
Right.
So it's very, very interesting. Our producer Lynn said it was actually the Choctaw people, not the Cherokee. So there you have it. But anyway, so he's trying to find a place for all these Irish peoples to travel to. So he's going to places all across Central America. He's going to places like Costa Rica, et cetera, on down the line. He would eventually be writing articles for Harper's Magazine about his travels. So he kind of starts making a little bit of a name for himself here in the States by this point in time, between his own newspaper, The Citizen, and these articles for Harper's. Because at that point in time, Harper's is a rather prominent magazine in the 1850s. It's pretty prominent. But as a result of this, he actually gets to be commissioned as a captain in the New York State Militia. So he's commissioned as a captain, and he would say, in regards to joining the fight for the Union, he says, "It is not only our duty to America, but also to Ireland. We could not hope to succeed in our effort to make Ireland a republic without the moral and material support of the liberty-loving citizens of these United States."
Ooh.
I know. You have to love how these people talk back
Right?
then. It's wonderful.
Oh, it's so dramatic.
So they're wonderful. But anyway, with that, so he So he decides to join the Union, and as you alluded to earlier, he had supported the South, and he would actually lose a good friend of his over this decision to join the Union and not the Confederacy.
Really?
So his name was John Mitchell.
Oh,
So
yeah,
they split over the issue of slavery.
Yeah,
So-
well, he wasn't John Mitchell one of the guys who also started the Young Irelanders?
I think so. Yeah,
that name sounds familiar.
I think so, but he would. So Mitchell would actually go and settle in Richmond, and he and his 3 sons would serve in the Confederate Army. However, with that, Thomas Francis Meagher and his New York State Militia would be absorbed into the 69th Infantry Regiment, the Fighting 69th. So primarily as the young, they were a bunch of young Irishmen. So
were they the Irish Brigade by now, or would that come
I
later?
think that name comes later.
Oh, okay.
So let me look that up here real quick, because I have to have this all up because this guy has just an amazing life. So after the first Battle of Bull Run, Meagher returns to New York to form the Irish Brigade. So he makes a famous speech at the Boston Music Hall to implore the Irish of the North to defend the Union. And remember, he is trained as an orator and he is a debater, so this guy knows how to talk. So
I read that he actually won a medal for debate when he was 15. He was like the youngest person ever to win that medal.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you stop and think about that.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually he would be commissioned to lead the Irish Brigade as a brigadier general in February of 1862.
What's the difference between a brigadier general and a regular general?
I really have no idea. I personally never served, so I don't know.
1 star,
Brigadier is 1 star, and
and it goes up from there.
it goes up from there, according to our producer Lynn. So
Yeah, and she would know.
she would know. Anyway, so do you remember in the I forget which Christmas carol it is, they talk about Currier and Ives?
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Is that the one? Chestnuts roasting on an open fire? Currier and Ives? You're
No.
processing. Well, trust me on this, okay?
Okay, I'll trust you.
Yeah,
For
right.
once.
Yeah, wow.
Don't lead me astray.
Mark this on the calendar that she's actually going to trust me for once. Wow.
You have 2 minutes.
Currier and Ives was actually a printmaker. They were printmakers, so they commissioned a lithograph of Meagher on horseback leading the Irish Brigade in a good old-timey bayonet charge. So, yeah, so there you go. Currier and Ives, printmakers. So, yes, they are actual people. So, anyway, so he ends up fighting through the first part of the Civil War. Meagher would lead an attack at Antietam, where the Irish Brigade would suffer a lot of losses. That's a problem, because Antietam was a very pivotal moment in U.S. history, as Lincoln takes it as the, what's the word I'm looking for? As the moment to strike this idea of the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all the enslaved peoples. But fun fact, how many enslaved peoples did it free? My students can answer this.
I can't. 0?
Not a single one. So, not a single one.
How did that happen? Was it just because like the Confederacy
was its own country.
was its own country,
And
so it didn't apply to them? Or
exactly. But
Yeah.
the big thing with that is it keeps the British and the French out of the war, because they had already emancipated enslaved peoples in their empires. But they kept them out of the war because they could not, on a moral high ground, support the Confederacy against an emancipated North. So,
Correction, Currier and Ives is sleigh ride.
and it's a printmaker.
Yes.
So, but with that being said, yes, a brilliant stroke of a political genius by Abraham Lincoln to keep, well, let's put it bluntly, Britain was the U.S. of the day. They dominated everything. So,
Right, and it was morally good because slavery is bad.
yes.
Thank you.
But with that, Mar would get injured in this battle, but now the detractors strike. Because some reports would say that Mar was drunk during the battle. Yes, that demon rum strikes again.
That's an awful stereotype.
Hey, this is what it is.
I
so
know, it's back in the day.
history is not pretty.
Nope.
History is ugly. So anyway, with that, so people would criticize his command abilities and just were pretty nasty to him. Because, I mean, this is a guy that comes over and he has frankly put a meteoric rise. So meteoric rise, and, well, you'll want to see people like that toppled. So you want to see him get toppled. But with that being said, Mar is injured in places like Fredericksburg, Antietam, etc., etc. He returns to command the Irish Brigade 3 days before the Battle of Chancellorsville. But not long after his time there, he actually resigns his commission in 1863. So, very, very interesting. He leaves the Civil War, at least in terms of command, for a small period of time. And eventually he would be assigned to the Western Theater, meaning like in the Cumberland River Valley. So he's assigned there. And then after the war, he would resign from the Army in general.
Yeah, get to the good part.
Montana?
Montana.
Because Montana, and we're awesome.
We're the good part.
We're the good part. God dang right. So, with that being said, so yes, Mar, he makes his way out to Montana because...
Oh, can I tell the story?
Knock yourself out.
Okay. And if I'm wrong, correct me.
Oh, you know I will.
Yeah. So, Andrew Johnson assigned Mar to be secretary to the governor, the territorial governor of Montana. I forget the guy's name. Anyway, he's not that
Sidney
important.
Edgerton.
Whatever. So,
fun fact, I knew Sidney Edgerton's was a great-grandson. He lived in my hometown of Manhattan. His widow had a couple of things of the Edgerton family. I don't know what ever happened to it after she passed away. So, but yeah, fun fact. Anyway, continue.
So anyway, Mar gets there, and it's is it Bannock or Virginia City? Because I read Virginia City first.
Bannock is the original capital. It gets founded in 1863, 62 or 63, and then it would move to Virginia City, Alder Gulch.
So this was Virginia City, because everything I read said it was Virginia City. And Mar got off the, I don't know, stagecoach or train or
Not
whatever.
train.
Stagecoach or, anyway, he got there. And he looks around. He's not super impressed with Montana because there's like log cabins are like the fanciest houses in town. And it was like really rough. And there was like vigilante justice was running rampant. So he goes to Edgerton. He's like, "Hey, dude, I'm your new secretary." And Edgerton's like, "Great. I'm leaving, so you be governor now." And he just left. He just went to Ohio. The governor just disappeared, went to Ohio, and basically told Mar, "Hey, it's your problem now."
Yeah, it's your deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, very good. Very good.
Thank you. See,
But
I can read.
Good for you. I'm proud. But anyway, so yeah, he does exactly that. He ends up trying to organize a military resistance to Native Americans in Montana Territory because of one pioneer by the name of John Bozeman. Now, that is an interesting story. So John Bozeman, obviously the namesake of the present-day Bozeman, Montana, is allegedly killed by a band of Native Americans. Some people say it's the Blackfeet, others say that it's the Crow Nation, others say that it's the Northern Cheyenne. We don't know. Heck, there's even evidence there that the cattle tycoon Nelson Story had him murdered because Story wanted to build a flour mill on a creek down there by Bozeman that John Bozeman had wanted. So
Murder.
So anyway, so Marr, he decides that we need to get a campaign against the Native Americans to find these offenders, but he fails. He doesn't find anybody, but he's still in power. He's still in power. Go ahead.
He's kind of in power because there is the vigilantes.
The vigilantes are doing their thing to bring law and order to the area.
Quote unquote law and order.
Yeah, depends on your definitions. But anyway, he actually is the one to call the first constitutional convention for Montana to form a happy little constitution because we want to be a state. By the way, do you know what it was 2 days ago?
Montana became a state.
Happy birthday, Montana.
Yay, Montana.
So, November 8th, 1889. But anyway.
But we didn't become a state at that time.
In 1889, but not when Mara's running around
No.
in 1864, 1863, that period of time. But with that, he does vote for this constitution, and they have their territorial congress, et cetera, et cetera. And you know what the second act of that territorial legislature was?
What?
It was to form the Montana Historical Society.
Ooh.
What's really interesting about this, and you know, shout out to our friends down there at the Montana Historical Society, like Martha and Rich and all the folks down there, wonderful people, just the best of the best. They were celebrating one of their anniversaries as a historical society, and somebody sent in a package that with a note that said, something along the lines of the contents you may have an interest in. Well, they open it up, and it's the actual document that formed the Montana Historical Society. It's fascinating. Nobody knows where it came from. There is no return address, nothing.
You know, that's really cool and all, but the way you built that up, I was expecting to be like gold or...
Gold, that's yesterday's news, whatever.
Or like severed hands.
Why would we be mailing severed... What kind of mail are you getting? Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Well, okay, maybe not severed hands. I was going with the Van Gogh sort
I
of.
suddenly have concerns about where your mind is at here.
You're just getting concerned.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But
no,
anyway.
I had Van Gogh on the mind with the ear thing. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
and
Didn't he cut that off for like a lover or something like that?
That's one story. But
So,
yeah,
interesting. But
they could have been fake severed hands.
why would you send a fake severed hand?
I don't know.
We're going to have a conversation after
Okay,
this.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. But anyway.
Or a puppy. Maybe they sent them a puppy. Like
why are you boxing a dog up to send in the mail?
Well, I don't know. It could have been a fake mail. Like you
Can
didn't
I
say.
gi- can I
was it
give-
in the mail? I thought somebody just dropped off a box. It could have been a box with like
Can I-
air holes poked in it.
Can I provide a piece of advice right now? Shh. She's glaring at me, or at least trying to give me dirty looks. So, anyway, I'm very concerned, but we'll have a conversation about that later because we're going back to Thomas Francis Meagher. So, anyway.
It could have been something happy too. Just saying.
It is. It was the document that built the Historical Society. Talk about foresight.
Okay.
But anyway, what's really crazy, though, is Thomas Meagher's disappearance.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Have you read this?
Murder.
We think. Lynn says it's a Jimmy Hoffa of Montana.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's up in Fort Benton to receive guns and ammunition and whatnot for use by the militia here in Montana. All right, all is well and good. But with that, he's in Fort Benton. He is recovering. I forget the name of the house that he would be recovering in.
Recovering from what?
Just an illness. Just an illness. You know, people get sick.
Oh, like a cold?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, as it says here, sometime in the early evening of the 1st of July, 1867, Meagher falls overboard from the steamboat G.A. Thompson into the Missouri River. Pilot describes the waters as instant death, water 12 feet deep and rushing at a rate of 10 miles an hour. Now, here's the deal. Nobody heard a splash. His body was never recovered. We have no idea what happened to him.
Nope.
We have no clue. And, you know, if there is anyone out there that has an idea, go ahead and send it to us or send it to the Historical Society or the people at Fort Benton's museums. Wonderful. Have you been to Fort Benton?
Yeah, I've been to Fort Benton.
It's wonderful. I love that town.
I got a picture of me and my son in front of the old Shep statue.
Oh, yes, the story of Shep.
Yeah.
Gotta love that. But yes, thus ends the life of Thomas Meagher, but he casts a huge shadow over Montana.
I have a story which makes his death like even
I'm
more
all
suspicious.
ears as long as we're not sending severed hands.
We're not. What's wrong with you? So the story goes that there was the vigilante group that was providing law and order or whatever. They were very anti-Irish. They were extremely an anti-Irish bunch. And they had this gentleman, I forget his name, had gotten arrested for manslaughter, and he was an Irish fellow, and they wanted to hang him. Meagher said, no, I'm going to pardon him. So Meagher gave him a pardon. And the vigilante group got a hold of him anyway and hung him anyway and pinned a note on this guy who was hung and said something to the effect of, if Meagher overrides us again, he will be hanging from the next tree. So he was getting death threats left and right. It wasn't just like
it wasn't just the British trying to kill him. But
no,
it was
I mean,
everybody.
There was a lot of people who wanted this guy Meagher dead. So the idea that he could have been murdered is actually more plausible than he would just randomly flip over the side of a steamboat.
I mean, the guy is obviously an accomplished athletic person. I mean,
well,
everything.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, everything he accomplished in his life, being an accomplished horseman, et cetera, on down the line, you'd think he's got at least a shred of athletic ability. But just to fall over the side of the boat, I don't buy it.
Yeah. I also heard a story that a prospector downriver from where this happened found a body of another prospector with a bullet hole through his head. So he took this body that he found and dressed it up in a Union general's outfit or a Union soldier's outfit and was touring it around saying it was the body of Thomas Meagher. But it wasn't. And he was charging like $0.25 a piece to come and look at this.
Hey, everyone's got to make a buck somehow.
Right? I was thinking about that. I was like, man, if you lived back then, if you found like a random dead body, like who didn't take it and like charge people 25 cents to look at it?
Yeah.
Like
this is entertainment of the day.
Yeah, there's so many stories of that where they're like, they caught a notorious outlaw. You can go and visit his body at such and such town. It'll cost you 5 cents or whatever.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely bizarro.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. It's like finding a dead body was akin to winning the lottery.
Yay?
No, not yay. That's bad.
I'm very confused. You're sounding very excited about this.
Well, no. I'm excited because it's so appalling. Like, I can't believe people would do this.
Yeah. Like I said, history's not pretty. It's ugly.
Yeah, it is.
It's brutal. It's nasty. It's vicious. It's wonderful.
And it reminds us we can do better.
We try. We attempt.
Mm-hmm.
We attempt. But yes, he still casts a big shadow over Montana. We have Meagher County, named after him. Over in Missoula, there is the Thomas Meagher Bar. Yeah, I gotta love that. But yeah, he casts a very big shadow all over Montana. But the pressing question now is, if a movie was made about him, and I strongly encourage anybody that's listening to make a good movie about Thomas Meagher's life because it's wonderful. Who plays Thomas Meagher? My vote is Liam Neeson.
You know, I thought about Liam Neeson, but I think he might be a smidge too old.
Possibly.
So I was thinking. Now I was thinking.
Lay it on me. Who is it?
Colin Farrell was my first choice.
Yeah, that'd be a solid choice.
But I don't know if he's getting too old too.
I don't know.
No, I don't think he would be. But yeah, so I guess my choice would be Colin Farrell. I don't know that many Irish actors if we want to stick with Irish actors.
Right. Because Mar was said to have a strong, quote unquote, Irish brogue.
Yeah.
How much of that was classism of the time?
Classism?
Well, he came from a fairly, not a wealthy family,
Well,
but
I think we would call it like upper middle class,
yeah,
maybe.
like wasn't his dad like a merchant or something?
Something like that, yeah.
But among the British,
Well, the British looked down on everybody.
Well, he was Irish. The British didn't like the Irish.
The British didn't like anybody.
Mm-mm.
So, but yes, I'm very curious as to who.
Yeah,
would make
if anybody out there has any suggestions of who could play Thomas Marr in the biopic,
Yeah, let's
about
stop
him.
making it about musicians, and let's do this one. That would be a good movie. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy them, but let's change it up a little bit.
yeah,
A little bit.
Chris Pratt.
I don't know if you could pull it off.
No,
I don't know if you could pull it off. But yeah, drop us a line at 406-411-podcast@gmail.com or hit us up on Facebook or
YouTube and Spotify.
YouTube and Spotify. So, yes, the story of Thomas Francis Meagher. You know what we should have done? We should have had one of the folks from Fort Benton over here for this.
Well, we still can.
Maybe one day we will.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're wonderful. Like Ken Robeson, those guys, they're wonderful people.
Well,
And
I don't know them yet, but I'm happy to meet them.
I have met them a handful of times, and frankly put, they have forgotten more history than I've ever learned. So, which is, yeah, not hard to do. But anyway, yeah, so there's a nutshell story of Thomas Francis Meagher.
Timothy Chalamet.
As Meagher.
Yeah.
Not bad. I think I opened up a can of worms. I can still see you processing this.
Yeah. I don't know.
I wonder what the audience is going to say.
Yeah.
Leave us a comment.
Yes, leave us a comment on who you think should play him.
Yeah, Lynn
in a
said
film.
so. Leave us a comment. So,
Mhm. So again, you can reach us at 406-411-podcast@gmail.com, or you can check out our YouTube channel at 406 Podcast on YouTube. You can reach us on Spotify at 406/411. And yeah, we'd be happy to hear from you. Remember to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell.
yeah, you said it all.
Did I say it all?
I think so. I think you covered it.
All right. Well, I guess we will leave this one here.
I love it.
All right.
Good night.
Don't.
Be
Don't-
good.
Okay, you
Be
can say
nice.
There, you can say that. Be good, be nice.
Trying to censor free speech over here.
I'll censor something.
Yeah.